Welcome to our NorCal VOAD conference. We are so excited to have you here today. We're going to have you go ahead and continue with the Mentimeter and opportunities to express how you're feeling. I'm feeling excited. I'm feeling blessed. I'm feeling lucky. I'd have to say I'm the whole Mentimeter this morning. My name is Kevin Cox, and I have the privilege of being the chair of the NorCal VOAD and the state of California VOAD. And so you're going to find a lot of information throughout the day. The day is jam-packed. And as I've been sharing with some of the folks here this morning, you may have some information that's a little redundant, but you're also going to find some new things too. So we hope that our goal is that you take 3 solid things away from today with you, and we look forward to being able to serve your communities. And that's one of the things that this is all about. And when we look at a VOAD and serving a VOAD, it is always local. And we want to make sure that you all here, we are in Santa Clara here, San Jose area, we want to make sure that you have the opportunity to network with your government officials, your partners in response, and get to know each other. Because as you say, and as we all have said for years, we don't want to exchange business cards 5 minutes after the disaster. We want to get to do that here before. And we've got some really great organizations that are based here. We've got some great speakers coming up today. We've got a little bit of housekeeping that I'd like to get done for you real quick. First off, if we do have an emergency, we hope that we don't, but if we have to evacuate, we have exits on the left, and then we have them in the rear.
You've been practicing.
Yeah, flight attendant style. So with the 4 exits, we are in an area that has a PSPS, but not for today. Hopefully, hopefully it doesn't happen at all, but we want to be prepared just in case. So we're very grateful. Also, at this time, I want to thank the Tzu Chi for the great work that they did putting this conference together for us here. And I'm going to invite my friend Minjing in just a moment, but we want to let you know the restrooms are out the doorway, straight ahead, and there's more if you go to the left and then the backside. This wonderful facility has a ton of bathrooms, so hopefully you'll be able, as you wander, you'll find one. Also, just to let you know, this is a non-smoking facility, so we do ask if you are a smoker, if you could do that in your car or out on the street side. We apologize for the inconvenience, but we do want to respect our friends here at the Tzu Chi. Also, I want to take the time, and you know what, the clicker didn't come my way, so if we could click to the slide for me on our sponsors, I would greatly appreciate that. Shame on me, you know, here I've been preparing all week and then I forget the clicker in the back of the room. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. Mike is doing our audio. Thank you, Mike, and Brad doing our video. So we could not do this conference without our good friends at Cal OES, the Listos, and the United Way. And you get to hear from many of those organizations today. The Listos, as many of you know, is all about preparedness. And you'll get to hear about preparedness later today. In fact, you're going to hear more than just the actual preparedness, because it's preparing for everything. So that will be very good. I'd like to invite Minjing to come up at this time. And I want to recognize the great work. The Tzu Chi, I've been privileged to work with the Tzu Chi since 2001. And I have loved watching this organization grow from not only the emergency response where they're giving out gift cards and so on, but they have grown so much that now have been doing case management. And then I also had the privilege, when we did Pajaro, they came out and actually worked with me in construction. And so they have been growing, and I'm so proud of this organization. So I want to introduce you to Minjing.
Hello, good morning. How are you doing? Thank you again for coming to Tzu Chi's facility. We welcome everyone to be here. I'm so pleased and so honored to have this opportunity to serve not only VOAD committee, but also a lot of good partners, great partners. And feel at home, please, if you have anything that need us to help. We have a lot of volunteers who are very, very willing to help. And hope you all enjoy a great day today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce you to Dana Reed. And Dana is with the emergency management in this area, and I'd like to come up and do a welcome and say a few words. Dana?
All right, well, good morning. And welcome to this event. I've never been here before. A beautiful facility. It's really an honor to be here with you today and to get an opportunity to speak, make a few remarks. Adriana said I could go for an hour, right? Said I had an hour? Uh-oh, here goes the sign. Yeah, you're finished now. Okay. Wow, that's a good one. I like that. Well, again, welcome and thank you for NorCal VOAD for putting on this event and all the sponsors. I mean, these are really critical events for all of us. And this is one of three, right, Kevin?
That's right.
One of three. So we're the first one out of the gate here locally. And Kevin and I were talking a tiny bit when I first got here, and you know, the realization, I've been with the county for about 11 years, spent 30 years in the fire service previous to that, and you know, what I've realized over the years is how critical VOAD really is. I mean, government can really only do so much, and so VOAD is what fills in the gaps that we can't fill. And Kevin and I were chatting about also that VOAD is, it's a labor force that can really help support counties and support the community in its time of need. And that's what we all strive to do, is support the community. I also think it's really critical, the business card comment was really good. I don't like meeting people at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's really difficult because you don't have that relationship up front with folks, and it's much better to make those relationships, build them early on. And you know, I'm just going to mention a few, it's not everyone, but you know, we built relationships with Second Harvest, Loaves and Fishes, the Silicon Valley Center for Independent Living, Salvation Army, Catholic Charities, Team Rubicon, and of course Cadre's here as well. Marsha Hovey's in the audience today. They help, they're a bridge with all of the partners. And we're really lucky to have everybody here. Tzu Chi, my first experience with them was in 2017 during the floods in San Jose at an event at a community center in San Jose. And I was really impressed how they just came together, embraced the community, and provided services back then in 2017. And they continue to do that to this day. I think, you know, one of the items for VOADs is, you know, just making sure that they are integrated really well into their counties and their service areas. And sometimes that can be a challenge, quite frankly, we know that. But the more time you spend talking and the more time you spend together, it makes it so much easier. And I feel we're actually in a better place now than we were 10 years ago with relationships, understanding, and partnerships. I think it's so critical. You know, there's this old saying that says, it takes a village. Well, VOAD is a big part of the village. If you don't have them with you and you don't have the capabilities, and more importantly, you have to really understand what is it that each entity can bring to the table. That's the really important thing with VOADs. So I've learned over the years, for example, sometimes I'll ask, you know, what can be provided, and sometimes the response I get back is, well, what do you need? Well, I don't know 100% all the time what I need. So the upfront relationship of understanding, for example, Salvation Army, we know, for example, they can feed folks. So if I need help with that, then that's where I'm going to start, for example. So it's really important to connect your communities. And I think I saw my counterpart. He doesn't spell his name correctly. But David Reed, he'll chuckle. He and I are partners in crimes from Santa Cruz. He does an amazing job over in the county of Santa Cruz and has really built a strong program over there to make their community better prepared. And I don't know, did Monterey make it in the house? Not yet? Oh, there they are. Oh yeah, welcome. So we got Cal OES here today. They play a really important part with us. We coordinate through them. We get resources through them. And then locally, we work with as many partners as we can. Fortunate today, I've got a couple staff. I got my PIO today. Charles in the back. Charles. So if you have any information you'd like to get from our PIO, awesome job. Got our interim deputy director in the back, Louis Toma, another great resource. And then we've got Jackie Kochi Tamayo. Jackie, where are you? I lost you. Oh, there she is. Doing amazing work on behalf of the OA with all the partners on VOAD. She came to the office, has a great background from Los Angeles and other parts, and she's really helped catapult our program forward. And she's the one that's really working really hard to build the relationships. And I know she's been working hard with Northern California VOAD, which we need, and the national. So these are strong voices. NorCal, VOAD, and then the national are very strong voices that need to advocate. Finish now, got it, thank you. And need to advocate for everyone, including all the VOADs and what they need. So I hope you have a wonderful day today. Enjoy it, network today, get as much out of this as you possibly can. Build the relationships. If you ever need anything from Santa Clara County or you want to spend more time with us or come tour the EOC, just reach out. We're always available. I'm not going to be able to stay because we have the public safety power shut off that we were notified of on Sunday, so we hit the ground running last night. The team has already hit the ground running this morning. We'll be activating our EOC tomorrow. So that's the work we're going to do, plus election day. So there you go. We're always busy. Let us know how we can support you. Thank you again, Kevin and Tzu Chi and everybody that's here today. Have a great day. Thank you.
Well, you know, David pointed out something really important, and it's something that many of the partners who know me that I speak to is hopefully my day today would be learning what I don't know. The old saying is that you don't know what you don't know. And today is going to be a day that you're going to learn more about the VOAD, you're going to learn more about preparedness, you're going to learn about response and recovery. And so we have a very good outline for our day. Let me get caught back up where I'm at this time, I'd like to introduce to you one of our sponsors and a very dear friend of mine, Matt Plotkin from the United Way. They are one of our sponsors here under the Listos grant. So Matt.
Thank you, Kevin. And this is really exciting to see this happen. This is, of course, one of 3 that is happening this week. The second one in Sacramento, and then the final one in Redding. And like Kevin said, my name is Matt Plotkin with United Way of Northern California. I'm the Director of Equity and Advocacy. I oversee our disaster services team as well as a few other components of our work in our 9-county region, which is the equivalent of the size of Tennessee. Something to think about. All of us know here in California that many states can fit their footprint inside of ours, and so plenty of us have regions or places where we serve that are wide-stretching. And this week, 6 years ago, I had no idea what LTRG was or a VOAD. When I woke up,
what's an LTRG?
Long-term recovery group. Thank you for asking. When I woke up on November 8th in 2018, I saw a massive smoke cloud just outside of Chico that was impacting the town of Paradise. The next thing I knew, weeks, met Kevin and a number of other of you and executed starting a long-term recovery group. In the midst of figuring out whether or not we were going to start a long-term recovery group, somebody also threw out the acronym VOAD, and we're like, what's a VOAD? And unfortunately, Butte County did not have a VOAD at that time, which meant for us starting from the ground up, figuring out how to launch into a long-term recovery group and support those that were impacted by the Camp Fire. Unfortunately, we keep having to do that in Butte County. Once again, we've launched a long-term recovery group out of our Butte Glen VOAD to respond to the park fire, and some of you have come up to Chico to support those that were impacted by the park fire. We've also been active in 2 other federally declared disasters in our county. We keep shining the light on disasters, unfortunately, in our county. But thank you for all of you who have come to support or have suggested to any of your colleagues up and down the state or your network to come to Butte County or any of the 9 counties that we serve. The other thing I want to add to the thank you is to Teresa Azevedo for helping make the Listos program that we're taking on and helping support and sponsor this event. We've been able to provide up to $9,000 to a number of VOADs up and down the state to help launch them, to become stabilized, or to continue the work that many of the VOADs are doing within the NorCal region. So it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to support this concept and to get all of us into the same room together instead of Zooming. And it's great to see people outside of the time boxes. So thank you for being here, and we're looking forward to a great week. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Matt. Matt, we commonly refer to as the rock star up in that area. Matt has been doing an amazing job, so thank you for that. I'm going to get shot for doing this because I know I'm behind schedule just a little tiny bit, and I'm already getting the look. But if you are with the government or government entity, would you just raise your hand? That is awesome. We so appreciate the partnership. Thank you so much for the ability to work with you. The second thing, I would like for our NorCal executive team to stand up, if you don't mind. Thank you. And just real quickly, I just want to acknowledge the wonderful work that has gone into this conference. And don't go away. You especially, can stay right there. I would like to give Adriana Rabkin an amazing applause and a big thank you on behalf of our NorCal board. She took this conference on and she knocked it out of the park. So thank you so much for all that you've done. And my final words to you before I invite our 2 incredible speakers that are coming up in just a moment to talk about what is a VOAD. I want you to think about your day. Think about the things that you want to take away from that. And that is, we talk about collaboration. We talk about how the VOADs work. And we talk about, to identify the expectations of the VOAD and being intentional when it comes time for service. So be thinking about those things. And since I'm a little bit behind schedule, I'd like to introduce 2 of my favorite people, other than, I have a trinity of Valeries in my life. I have Valerie Cox, my wife, Valerie Mahanovich, who's our state Val, and I've got Valerie Brown. So let me introduce one of the trinity, Valerie Brown and Adriana Rabkin. They are going to be speaking on what is a VOAD. So thank you, ladies.
Testing? Yes. Okay, good. Testing, is this on?
Yeah.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Closer.
Thank you.
Too far away.
Close to.
Oh, sorry. You can tell I don't like these very much. Thank you all for coming. This is tremendous to see all of you. I'm so grateful. Closer? Even
Yes.
better? Oh, okay. I've got lipstick on, though. I just want to say in response to what Kevin shared, I could not have done this without the amazing NorCal VOAD executive team. It was phenomenal. And talk about collaboration. They asked me to step up and lead this. I was happy to do it. And every step of the way, somebody on the committee was always standing up and saying, well, I can take that, and I'll do this. And have you thought about this? Well, I'll lead that. And it was collaboration at its finest. So I will happily do another conference with this group. I will happily respond in disasters with this group. It was Blue skies, tremendous work, and you can see how well it all works in gray skies. I am Adriana Rabkin, Director of Marin County VOAD, which sits just north of the Golden Gate Bridge, and I'm also on the NorCal VOAD Executive Committee, and I am the conference manager. So if you do have any comments or questions or complaints, please let me know, because we got 2 more of these to do, and we want to make them good. Thank you.
Thank you. And Adriana was the miracle worker that made this happen in just a very few short weeks. So thank you for that. My name is Valerie Brown. I am the Normal Blue Skies. I'm the Deputy Executive Director of United Policyholders. I'm also the chair for the last 8 years of San Diego County VOAD. So I've been doing this a while. And I am, or what am I now? And I'm also running a DCNP for San Diego County from the January 2024 floods. So I'm a program director for that as well. And what is VOAD?
There we go, perfect.
Yeah, I'm
So-
the clicker, sir.
As Kevin mentioned, some of this is going to be new to people. Some of you already know this. Bear with me as I walk through a little basics, but I think it's good for all of us to get to the beginning. So what is VOAD? Voluntary, not volunteer. Voluntary organizations active in disaster. Some partners go by COAD. It is fine for local partners to be VOADs or COADs. COADs or community organizations active in disaster. The acronyms are overwhelming to people. We clearly are sticking within emergency management and adding more acronyms, but just so you all know, we are VOADs and COADs. And we all do the same thing. We are collaborations of community-based organizations, or what you'll hear me refer to as CBOs. These include your nonprofit partners, your faith-based organizations, your community organizations like schools, libraries, healthcare clinics, community centers, as well as partners with local and county government agencies. VOADs connect these organizations, and we build a collaborative network to support the community before, during, and after disasters.
And just to piggyback on what you said, put it very succinctly, government is tasked to do things after a disaster. We are asked, and that's really the primary difference.
That's a great point. So VOADs are part of a well-established system at the national VOAD level, at the state and territorial level. We are here representing both state VOAD, California State VOAD, as well as our local county VOADs. The national VOAD's been around since 1970.
Those trusted CBOs are your ambassadors that are taking and amplifying messages from government, from you as a VOAD, to share what is available to help people. And this coordination ensures that everybody has the information that's needed, they can get those resources where they're needed, and help our most vulnerable residents in your county through this, right? And then collaboration. That's what we're here to do. So we take these things and we're just playing with each other in the sandbox to get the work done. And what you do, every disaster is going to look very different depending on what the disaster is, what the needs are, the community impact, and the resources they have.
So I mentioned that we work throughout the disaster cycle, preparedness, response, and recovery. So in Blue Skies, what does this look like? We meet regularly to build relationships and trust among each other and our government partners and our CBOs. It's essential that we understand how both sides think about things. That's what forms the best partnership, and that's what builds trust over time. And I have to say, one of the best ways to get people to the table is to understand what's in it for them. Why should they be there? Why should they take their time to come to your meetings, to participate in your exercises? You need to have something for them that brings them into the fold. And it can be, this network of resources and services that you've developed. It can be exercises that you lead or discussions that you hold on particular topics that bring people together. You share information. Help educate partners about what everyone does, and build awareness about the resources and services throughout your communities. Promote preparedness and educational opportunities. Assist VOAD partners with their preparedness through sharing best practices amongst each other. How did you handle COVID with your staff? What did you do? Can help organizations develop their emergency plans. Bring everybody together and discuss what a continuity of operations plan is. How does the food bank manage their coop relative to the smaller organization? They're all going to learn things from each other, and that's what the VOADs do in Blue Skies, is help educate everybody and bring everyone together. And this is all in the name of developing a coordinated disaster response so that we can best support our communities. Yeah. Okay, sorry, thank you. So Gray Skies, what do we do during Gray Skies? Gray Skies are disaster times. In Marin County, we hold daily conference calls. When we were completely shut out without power in 2019 and the Kincaid fire in Sonoma was happening, we still managed to hold daily conference calls twice a day. People drove to the spots where they could still get access. We brought everyone together. This was our opportunity to share critical information with our government, with our community partners about what government was doing, where shelters were being set up, what was happening, what the expectations were, and it was how we could get information from the communities into the government response, what communities have specific needs. In Marin County, we've been active in small incidents and large-scale disasters over the last 6 years. And just a very quick example, but it was during one of our conference calls during severe weather last year when Office of Emergency Management learned that one of our unincorporated towns had, their sewage plant was down and had been down for 3 days. And that connection would have never been made if it weren't for the VOAD conference call, because those partners didn't know to connect with each other. So build your VOAD, hold your conference calls. It's where we coordinate distribution of resources to everybody. We pushed out emergency food boxes to older adults who were stuck at home. We got them into retirement facilities and living facilities. We distributed COVID tests and emergency financial assistance. And perhaps most importantly, you're getting information out there. You're getting information in a bi-directional way between both during disasters. I want to just walk you through quickly a tale of two disasters. Marin County, during the atmospheric rivers that we had last year, there were a series of them. And there was one incident, but when they first hit, there's a particular town that's unincorporated that has one ingress and egress, one way in and out. It gets flooded. This is a low-income community. This is a community of color. This is a community that is disadvantaged, that feels very disconnected. They don't trust government. And here's what happened. The storm was coming in. Everyone knew about that. Red Cross set up a shelter. Department of Public Works set up flood vehicles that were staged near the ingress-egress point in order to transport people. These are people who leave their community to go to work or schools and had to come home. And here's the problem. None of it was coordinated. So the shelter that was set up, nobody went. The encampment that was nearby, the unsheltered individuals, all found other places to go, because they didn't know that the shelter was being set up. Department of Public Works set up this great plan with their ATVs. Nobody used them because nobody in the community knew about them, because nobody in the community was told that this was going to happen. And people were stranded both ways, and nothing happened. So don't rush out to your communities without being part of the coordinated response. Take a minute, figure out what's happening, and work together.
And in San Diego, we were very coordinated. As I said, our VOADs had a lot of practice in the last 20-some years. We get a federally declared disaster about every 4 years, so lots of practice, unfortunately, and lots of partners, which is a blessing. And so for us, we had a hard time, even though we were coordinated, we work hand in hand with our Office of Emergency Services, working with our city jurisdictions that are impacted, and our partners to keep everybody in the same space. We were very challenged because we had elected officials going out and making pronouncements and announcements of help and things that were going to happen in a timeline that was not sustainable. So while we were organized, we had someone making these pronouncements that caused actually more harm in the trust relationships in the community with government because they were being made independently of what could actually happen. And so, one of the lessons we learned was that getting ahead on that communication piece, we were communicating with our partners, we were communicating with government, and we were doing a really good job of rounding up our cowboy organizations that came into town and folding them into our effort. We were not communicating with the community. And that's just a failing we realized we had. So even though we were very heavily coordinated, we had a gap. We have now fixed that gap, but it was a much bigger deal. And so one of the big things we found is just the larger organizations coming in to help in those first 2 or 3 days had expectations that we knew the houses to be cleaned up, and we had the supplies, and we had the PPE, and we're San Diego. We get 11 inches of rain in a year. Not in an hour. And so we were waiting for partners to bring it in. We needed to get the government to get bins and debris removal contracts. And then we had to train people who are used to doing wildfire how to do mold suppression. We ended up making a video in Spanish and English that we could share statewide because we didn't have that resource. And then one of the bigger things was people came in thinking we were going to be able to handle their needs. And that's just not the reality. We had some partners saying, well, where are we going to sleep? Well, I don't know. I didn't know I needed the bunkhouse right now. I have a bunkhouse now, but it took many months to get that bunkhouse ready for volunteer teams. And so just being aware of that. And I think we're at the last thing I've got, right? So closing thoughts. So we are all more effective and efficient in a disaster if we're coordinated. So in California, we're subject to floods, severe weather. We've had a tornado at least once here in LA, right? Earthquakes, mudslides, wildfires. And so with all of these disasters, the best way to support your community is to be connected to this larger network within your county VOAD, your region VOAD, your state VOAD, and if possible, national VOAD. And that way you're going to have access to that critical, timely, accurate information about the developing disaster, location of shelters, resources, debris bins, whatever it is, in those next steps, right? And it allows you to obtain those resources and coordinate through your VOAD. And then this larger network you have with California VOAD will support you. One of the neat things we've done with Kevin is we've created committees for each of we're mirroring what happens at National VOAD. So we have a construction committee, we have a VOAD startup committee, we have a disaster case management committee, long-term recovery group, and these are working groups that we meet monthly to help put together a state toolkit to help you when you need it. So if you're interested, please see one of us at the end, and we will connect you to that group, because it's you want to get established, get that committee up and running, so that if something happens, you're not reinventing the wheel. You already know the best practices, you have that access to that information, and bring everybody together so that you can create that resilient system that's going to serve everybody impacted by disaster.
Questions?
Wow.
We answered all of them.
Right here. I already know what is coming, so go ahead.
He thinks he knows what's coming.
Oh, that sounds ominous.
I don't think so. I'm Sheila Gunn. I'm from the Center for Independent Living. I'm an emergency preparedness coordinator. I live in Oakland. I work in Oakland. My office is in Berkeley. My commute is about 30 seconds if I'm moving fast, about a minute if I'm not. I like it that way. How many people in this room, besides Lars Eric and Ron, know what DDAR is? How many? Okay. That's 1/8 of the population. First of all, 1/4 of the U.S. population have access and functional needs, and that is a conservative estimate. Access and functional needs, AFN, are, okay. So the fast version is disability disaster access and resources is run by the state through the California Foundation of Independent Living Centers and uses money from all three of the big power brokers. And we help people during PSPSs and wind events that might cut off power. Come find me, I'll tell you more. But
Thank you for bringing that up.
just wanting to bring up accessibility all the time, please. That video actually had an audio description, I think, and those are important if we can get them.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. And I will say for my VOAD, because like I said, it's my 8th year, I have a cycle of every year we focus on a certain topic. Last year was access and functional needs because I didn't feel my partners had a handle on it. The state just did a fabulous conference in Ventura? No.
Ventura.
Was it Ventura?
Ventura County.
Yes, yeah. So fabulous access and functional needs conference. If you did not go this year, you should be there next year. And if you're running a long-term recovery group, you need to have a committee working on that because what you don't know is it will blow you away. How many of you actually have an access and functional needs? And I'm going to raise my hand because I have arthritis in all my joints. On a bad day, I walk like I'm about 100. Okay. So yeah, we're looking at about 1/4 of the room has an access and functional needs. And you have to be prepared for this because what you can't do is have a disaster go down and you have people who depend on mass transit to evacuate and mass transit has been closed. They don't get the alert because of the way it's transmitted. All of those pieces feed in. And I know you have something else to say. I'm going to be quick.
Glasses are an access and functional need if you don't have them.
Yes, and then I have double access and functional needs here because I have my reading glasses on now. Sorry, while you're all moving back to your seats, I'm going to give you a tidbit of a question that we had that we did not address. So when we're talking about the 3 M's, money, muscle, materials, a lot of you your VOAD is not its own nonprofit. That's okay. You just need a physical sponsor, have an agreement with them. They'll accept donations on your behalf. Your VOAD executive committee is the board that's going to make those recommendations how to spend that money. You will need that relationship pre-disaster. Please get that nailed down. Okay, without further ado, because I think I'm 3 minutes late at this point, right? Yes, I'm a little late. So I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker to you today. This is my dear friend, Aaron Titus with Crisis Cleanup. He also wears lots of other hats. I actually met him after the Marshall Fire because he was part of the state VOAD leadership team who ended up standing up the long-term recovery group for about 6 months. It was very painful, a lot to get going. He's also was the chair at the time of Mountain West VOAD, which is all the western states, and putting that conference together. And so I kept running into him, and now we've become really good friends. And I just wanted to share him with you. This was my ask for the exec committee to bring him in because he brings just a wealth of knowledge, different ways of looking at the stuff, very much outside of the box, which I feel will benefit us because as we know with 20, at least as I know for 20 years of disaster recovery, preparedness, education in the state, we are not moving that needle enough to get people prepared for what they need to know. And I find what Aaron brings to the table helps with that. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. And it's good to see a lot of friendly faces. If I have a fountain of knowledge, it is only because it's a burst pipe, I think. We will be talking a lot. You all will be talking a lot. We're also going to be moving around. So I'm just going to give you a warning. And if you are at a table with fewer than 4 people, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and get up and move to another table. I need 4 per table. And if you don't, I will call you out, and I will point to people. So just go ahead and get Four to a table there. All right, so we are going to do not a presentation. I'm not. And it says keynote speaker. You did not come here to hear me talk. You came here to learn from one another about how to prepare, because everybody is actually, we are each preparedness experts because we know how to meet our basic daily needs. And what that also means is that our communities are preparation experts. What we lack is a way to organize what we already know. And that's what we're going to learn today, and then we're going to prepare together. Too often in preparation, like we know from experience that in disasters, response and recovery and mitigation and rebuilding, all of those are community activities. And yet we have a culture where preparation is treated as though it is an individualistic activity. And the social science research just does not support that at all. We prepare better when we prepare together. Preparing together is itself an act of resilience. Having strong social connections is a better indicator of both short-term survivability and long-term resilience than any other single factor, including working infrastructure, 72-hour kits, or anything else. And so the key to preparing for everything, there are two important keys. Number one, prepare for disruptions, and I'll explain that in just a second. And number two, prepare together. We're going to go through an exercise together, and by the time we're all done, you will each be deputized to run this facilitation for your communities and train others and just do it, which is going to be awesome. So, preparing for disruptions. All right, so on your table, you will have 2 sheets. Everybody should have 2 sheets. One is I'm told this is not yellow, this is goldenrod, I'm told. This sheet right here, worksheet 1, we're going to take a look at that. So everybody grab worksheet 1. You'll also find a little raffle ticket. I did bring copies of my book, How to Prepare for Everything, so there'll be a raffle at the end. And if you get a copy and you ask me to sign it, I will do it because it makes me feel good. Okay, so on worksheet number 1, you will see a list of a bunch of disasters down the side of this page. When we focus on disasters, it makes us feel bad, right? That's why we don't like preparation. It's a little overwhelming. You go through this list and then you think, well, I made this list and I checked off the first 4 items, so I hope the zombies eat me first, or something, right? When we focus on the disasters that happen, we have very little control over the bad things that happen to us. If we had control over the bad things that happen to us, we'd make sure bad things didn't happen to us. So when we focus on the bad things, on the disasters, it creates FUD. Anybody heard that acronym before? FUD? Any marketers in here? No, I guess it was the wrong crowd. FUD is actually a marketing term. It stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And FUD is a great way to get you to buy something. And as we're seeing in the current election cycle, it is also a great way to get you to vote for someone. But FUD is a terrible way to empower communities. So we're going to get rid of the FUD for a second. Across the top of the page, you will see disruptions that disasters can cause. So disruptions to power and computer, food, shelter, water, property, evacuation, disruptions to money, emotional and spiritual needs. And what you'll see here in the middle are X's that illustrate that some disasters cause some of the disruptions. Some disasters, let's say like a major earthquake, might have disruptions across the board. But having a chronic illness is probably not going to make your roof collapse. Right? So not every disaster causes every disruption. Does that make sense? Also, you'll see that the disasters are grouped by external regional disasters, external local disasters, and family and personal disasters. We have a lot of emergency managers and government folks in this room, and we've kind of been taught and indoctrinated that if it's big and it affects a lot of people, that means it's worse. And certainly as responders, that's true. That means more work for us. But if you're an individual and a family, the size of the disaster doesn't really have an effect on how devastating it can be. The loss of a spouse can be way more devastating than a tree falling on your roof. So just because it's big doesn't necessarily mean that it's worse for any individual. These groupings will become useful a little bit later, but I just wanted to point them out. So now we're going to go to the magical moment, which, like, if I could cue, I don't know, like Odyssey 2001 music or something. Imagine just like some really epic music in your head for me, okay? We're going to take this document, we're going to turn it 90 degrees in this direction. And if you don't remember anything else from today, this is the thing to remember. If you turn it this way and you read the document across, and I usually turn it upside down. I turned it upside down. How about that way? For those of us who actually read English, right side up. Yeah. Exactly, we need the Braille as well. So now if you read the document this way, you'll notice that if you prepare for a power outage, you are partially preparing for many disasters. If you prepare for disruptions to food and water and cooking, you're partially preparing for many disasters. We don't have a lot of control over the disasters, but we have a great deal of power and control over how we respond to the disruptions they cause. So if it doesn't matter whether the power outage was caused by a fire, a flood, a backhoe, or your 16-year-old daughter backing into a pole. I have 11 kids, by the way, and I have a 17-year-old daughter. She has not yet backed into the pole, hopefully. But it doesn't matter what caused the disaster, simply prepare for the power outage. And if you will prepare for a few disruptions, it no longer matters what disaster comes your way. Does that make sense? Okay, that is like the thing that I want you to remember. Stop preparing for disasters, because disasters cause FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. When we focus on disruptions, it creates empowerment. And that's the point here. Okay, so we're going to put worksheet 1 down and grab worksheet number 2. You'll notice for each disruption on worksheet number 1, you'll have a row. So water, sewer, power, computer, and so on, all the way down these 6 pages. And across the top of the page, you will see a couple of I can speak English, that's not today. You'll see that it spans from 0 to 3 days, 3 days to 2 weeks, and so on. How we respond to disruptions is dependent upon how long the disruption lasts. So, let's say for a power outage, right? I may eat all the food in the fridge, play board games with my kids, read a book, and curl up in the fetal position because I don't have high-speed internet. Right. Seriously, indoor plumbing is totally negotiable, but if I don't have high-speed internet, I might die. So, you, on the other hand, might turn on the generator or something else, right? We each prepare in different ways. Regardless, both of our strategies will have to change if the power outage lasts for 2 weeks. By that time, the food in the fridge is all, rotten, and the kids are bored with the board game and all those things. So it's going to have to change. So each of us prepares in different ways. I'm going to ask you to think for a second. Are you a maker, a doer, a buyer, or a relationship builder? So a maker might make a DIY solar panel array in the backyard, right? A doer is kind of related, but more kind of like me, right? They're going to eat all the food in the fridge first and read the book. And then you maker, doer, buyer, right? The buyer is going to buy that giant mega kilowatt diesel generator and have it installed. And the relationship builder, he's going to go over to Ed's house and mooch off of him, right? Because Ed has power. So each of us prepares in different ways, which is why when we make that list of that brochure and then we hand it to somebody, it doesn't really work, right? If you've ever received one of those brochures with a list of things that you need to do, you're like, well, that's 30% useful. But my situation is different. And because all of our situations are different, I can't solve your problems. You can, though, because you do it every day. And our communities can because they do it every day. And we're just going to organize it. Okay, so what we're going to do next, and I promise this is the quietest it's going to be. It's decibel level is definitely going to rise after this. We're going to break into the groups that you're in, and we're going to take a few minutes to brainstorm coping strategies and solutions as a group. So as a group, you're going to choose any one of these disruptions, and then brainstorm things to make it that you would do to deal with this particular disruption. I'm going to be coming around and keeping you on target. I don't know if we have, let's see, maybe some of the executive committees. If you could, for the first minute, if you could just go around from one group to another and just encourage them to choose a disruption, doesn't really matter which, that would be super helpful. And if anybody chooses communication, just let me know. All right, so, and there's only one rule. If you hear something useful from somebody on the table, write it down. And if you hear something that's not useful, you can ignore it. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's take 1 minute. All right. So what I love about this workshop is that everybody's talking, which is so much different from most preparation workshops you've probably been to. And you may have run. Remember that the whole thesis behind this workshop is that you and your communities that you serve are preparation experts. They already know all the resources in their community. They know how things work. If you will, so a couple of things you will notice about this presentation. There is no slides. There are no slides. If you're doing slides, you're doing it wrong. Number two, when you do this, especially, I will put this gently, especially if you're a government person, you will feel the overwhelming need to stand up here and to tell everybody what they should be doing and all of the amazing resources that they have, and you should all do this, right? Just don't do that. Now, if you feel that need, that overwhelming need to provide resources, put it on a piece of paper, print it out, and put a copy of those resources on each of the table, and let them know that it's there. And then that way they can glean the resources that are relevant to them that they can write on their own worksheet. Because when we're all done, we have we're going to do a couple more rounds. We're going to have a couple of things. First is a vocabulary to talk about preparation that does not create fear. It creates empowerment. That's number one, probably the most important. Thank you very much. The second is a preparation plan that you actually believe because it's in your handwriting. It's not something that I hand you that you go throw in the trash can after we're all done or think, oh, that was nice. The next thing that you have is the beginnings of your own personalized 72-hour kit. So you'll see that first 3 days, I put 0 to 3 days because research shows people don't know that 72 hours is 3 days. It's 3 days, just in case there's unclear about that. When we're all done, you'll notice that first column, there's a little dotted line. You go through that first column, and everything down all 6 pages, that's the beginning of your personalized 72-hour kit. And then the last thing is, if you look at the very last page, you'll see a support system section. As you write down coping strategies and solutions, many of them might involve other people. Your veterinarian, your pediatrician, your neighbor down the street. And Every time you have somebody else who's part of your support system, write their names down, and on this very high-tech piece of paper that does not require batteries to work or a clicker, you will then have their contact information written down and available when you need it the most. For me, like, if you can read print, yes. For me, right, like, I can tell you my childhood phone number, but I can't tell you my wife's cell number because it's in my cell phone, right? So anyway, just it's useful to write it down sometimes. Okay, another thing I want to point out, there are the first scale that I mentioned is the time frame. Just below that, you'll see external disasters on one side and family and personal disasters on the other. There will be some disruptions, like medical disruptions. And you'll start planning out a little ways, and you're like, well, 6 months? I mean, what am I going to do? Turn my house into an OR or something? Like, I don't know. The further out that you get, you can shift your thinking a little bit to the family and personal disasters. Generally speaking, external disasters, like the hurricanes or the floods or the atmospheric rivers, those will have high impacts over the short term with diminishing effects over the long term. And in general, the family and personal disruptions will have low impacts on any given day, but have very high impacts over the long term. So for example, I've got a son who has an undiagnosed neurological issue. On any given day, it is not an emergency, but it has had an enormous effect on almost every aspect of our life and where we live and how we live and the decisions that we make. It really shapes everything. So, if you're doing like medical disruptions, for example, and you get out here to the 6-month time frame, the answer for here might be like get medical insurance, or go back to college to get a job that can provide you medical insurance, for example. So I just want you to think in that way. If you get stuck, the further out you go, think in terms of family and personal disasters and disruptions rather than the more immediate external disasters. Okay, so we have time for a little bit of reporting out. I'm going to randomly call on, let's see, table number 22. They have numbers on these tables, so wonderful. Table number 22. Oh yeah, you just got voluntold. All right, very quickly here. Which disruption did you discuss? Oh, you definitely need it.
Heating and cooling
Heating and cooling on page
on page
4. Okay, everybody turn to page 4 real quick. Please share a couple of the things that you brainstormed about heating and cooling. And if you hear something useful, write it down. And if you hear something that's not useful, you can ignore it.
So about heating and cooling, getting the word out there about the cooling centers, and then also we utilized our time and talked about what avenues have we used when it gets cold. When it gets hot. So ice packs, different things, and there's little portable ACs that you can use with battery packs. As soon as we see the forecast, start putting your ice packs in the freezer, utilizing the heat, because finding places where you can go and cool down, shaded areas. One of our team members here mentioned if there's no heat to warm up your water, they have used taking the water outside and in the heat, making that warm up. So then you could take a warm bath just with that heat.
That's great, yeah. And there are little bags, black bags of water that you can put in the sun that'll heat up as well. Yeah, yeah.
A couple of things is, talking to our neighbors, seeing who has the ACs that are using, communicating prior to this heat wave. And then also in the heat, you could take things off, cool down, and then getting in different areas in the house, so that way you're not utilizing so much heat in other places.
Awesome. I will point out that out of all of the suggestions that she just shared, a very small minority required you to go out and buy something, right? This is not about going out and buying stuff. These are coping strategies and solutions, and that involve doing and making and buying and relationship building, all of the above. Yeah, so thank you. Were there any other suggestions on heating and cooling anybody wanted to add?
Fans.
Sand?
Fan.
Fans make a lot more sense than sand. Well, although my undergrad's in architecture, and the first thing that came to mind was like, oh yeah, well that makes perfect sense. But anyway, from an architectural standpoint. Yes?
We when the power goes out, or actually we have power, but when we can't heat our water, we have a little nozzle on a hose in our bathroom that will heat the water as it comes through the nozzle. And we can take warm showers, not hot, but warm, even if we don't have hot water in our hot water heater.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Here, oh.
Thank you. We utilize camping equipment oftentimes, so it's a lot less expensive for you to buy a camp stove and a little canister of propane than investing in a generator or backup battery. And camp stoves, you can heat up your food, you can heat up the water for bathing in, for cooking, all of that kind of stuff that comes in handy.
All right, so okay, one more, and then we'll move to the next round.
I was just going to share, I actually was in the Northwest during that heat wave, spending the night in a greenhouse. Of all places. So one of the things I did, which I actually repeated this summer, is use ice packs. So for me, the biggest challenge is actually in the evening, not during the day, because often where you're staying, or our own home, in El Cerrito, is actually a lot warmer than it is outside. So just getting an ice pack out and using that while you're trying to go to sleep.
That's awesome. All right, so we're gonna repeat this process one more time. So here's what we're gonna do. If you are wearing glasses today, I'm gonna have you stand up and move at least 2 tables away and find a new table. Then once, and we're gonna try to, 4 or 5 per table is great, because any fewer, then there's not enough people to talk. Then once you sit back down, choose another disruption. It can be the same one that you've done in the past, or you can do a new one, but we'll do that nice and fast. So go ahead, if you're wearing glasses, stand up and find a new table, at least 2 tables away. All right, let's go ahead and wrap it up.
I know there's been stress in the past between that services.
All right, so we're going to have time for one more round, but I want to go through a couple of pointers before we do musical chairs again. Let's see here. Okay, you'll notice on worksheet number 2, there's a list of things, list of random items down the left side. Those are conversation starters. They're not requirements or anything like that. Sometimes you might get that question. Next, when you run a workshop like this, because you all totally are going to, is 10 people are really the minimum number to make this work. If you have fewer than 10 people, you just don't have, the engagement. At about 25 people, the room really starts to buzz, and, things are fun at about 25 people, but 10 minimum. Groups of 4 to 6, any fewer than 4, and there just isn't enough engagement. Any more than 6, and you get some wallflowers that can't really communicate. Then you'll notice that we do the musical chairs and get people moving up and around. Now, the musical chairs has a couple of benefits. It keeps everything kind of fresh, and importantly, this is by design, you get to meet new people. And as you're running this for your community, remember the 2 components of preparing for everything. Number 1, prepare for disruptions, and number 2, prepare together. And again, the act of preparing together is an act of resilience. Meeting people in your community, creating those relationships is a part of the process and why we do it this way. It's why it isn't just like a Zoom meeting or something, right? You probably got to know new people and, develop stronger relationships. And so this is the model, this is why we do it that way. Also, if you have an alpha male in your meeting, you know, that one guy who just like won't stop talking, and it usually is a guy. Let's be honest. You know, and just will monopolize it. Just make sure that you move him around each time, and it's a win-win-win, right? Like I win because he's not totally tanking one of my groups. The group wins because they don't have to listen, you know, to the same person over again, and he wins because he gets a brand new audience every time. Now, for the record, I haven't seen any alpha males here or anything, but just a pointer, pro tip. Okay. The workshop, again, gives you that vocabulary, that 72-hour kit, a way to talk about disasters that does not create FUD, and importantly, relationships. Strong relationships in your community. That's what we're doing and why we're doing it. When you facilitate, remember, your role is facilitator, not expert. Some of the best facilitators have no idea of anything about preparation at all. Imagine for a second that instead of letting you talk and share ideas, that I decided to come up here and do a half-hour presentation on how to make rabbit traps out of sticks. You would probably not be as happy with me right now. So just remember that, you know, follow the golden rule of presentations, right? Never give a presentation that you would want to sit through. Your role will be facilitator, not expert. It's also the reason why I don't just like sit down at a table. I love to do that. I'll go sit down at a table and then immediately everybody will just stop talking and look at me. I'm like, no. That's not the point, right? So expert, you're not the expert, you're the facilitator. Okay. I think that's all I wanted to get through. So we have time for one more quick round. So if you were born in July through December, go ahead and stand up. I'm not going to pick on glasses people. And find the table at least 2 tables away, at least 4 per table. And we'll do it one more time. All right, let's go ahead and wrap it back up. Bring it back. This is my favorite part of the facilitation, where it's loud, right? Like, this is how you know you're doing it right.
I think I'm very organized for all this information that she's educating.
All right, so for this last part, I'm going to cover a couple more things very quickly, and then we're going to do something called buzz groups. And buzz groups are amazing, and I'll teach you how to do it here in just a second. Okay, number 1, digital copies. If you want digital copies, yes, you're welcome to. On the bottom of of worksheet 2, very bottom, in very small print that is definitely not accessible. Thank you. That was just for you, by the way. You'll find my email address. Yeah. Just send me an email and just say, hey, I was in your workshop. Can I have the digital copies? And I will email them to you. I used to just make them available online for everybody, but then what would happen is that people would use them to teach the traditional FUD-filled lectures, and I realized that the value is not in the worksheet itself, but in the approach. And so what I just say is, like, look, if you have a copy of the book, you read the book, or you've been through a workshop, absolutely. I'm happy to share those.
No, I love this.
Awesome. Well, I'm also glad you're giving me a hard time, because that's how I know you like me. Okay, next, adaptation for institutional disruptions. As you'll see, this is designed for family and personal disruptions. You can take this approach, and I think you should, and adapt it for institutions. So institutions do not have emotional and spiritual needs. Their employees do, but the institution itself doesn't. So you can take the disruptions and replace them with disruptions to the institution. The quickest, easiest way to do that is to take a list of everybody's job titles and then look at what those departments do. Those are your disruptions. And you can replace the key disruptions and then do something very similar with your employees. You can do it by location, for example. I would certainly recommend doing interdepartmental, but you can do that. Let's see here. Then the book. Let's see. There's also a communications worksheet I will send you. Those of you who did communications, I went over this with you, but this kind of brings a little bit of sanity to the discussion about communication, which creates a lot of FUD. I won't go over that right this second, though. As I mentioned, I'm the author of How to Prepare for Everything, so the book is available on Amazon. I brought 5 copies. We'll do a raffle here in a second. And it goes over everything that we went over today and, a lot more. And it's an easy read. I made sure. Then we're going to do buzz groups now. And then,
Kindle doesn't have the accessibility stuff in the Kindle.
No, not yet, because Kindle is hard. It is really hard. And you know what else is hard? Doing an audiobook too, because I have tables and
Yeah.
oh my gosh,
I did
doing
that.
tables
I
accessibly.
didn't ask you that when you noticed.
Yes, I did notice. Okay, we're going to do buzz groups now. And after the buzz groups, we'll then come back and we'll do the raffle. Here's how a buzz group works. You're going to split up into a group of 2, exactly 2. And if you're at a table of 3, I'm going to have you move to another table of 3, even it out. One of you is going to be Alice, and the other is going to be Bob. You can decide who's Alice and Bob. One of you is going to be Alice, one of you is going to be Bob. And then I'm going to ask you a few open-ended questions. I'm going to ask you, how do you feel? Just a wide open question. How do you feel? And then Alice is going to turn to Bob. And for 1 minute, just answer the question. How do you feel? And then after a minute, it will be Bob's turn. And Bob will turn to Alice and answer the question. So we'll do this. We'll repeat this for 3 questions. The questions I'm going to ask, and don't worry, you don't have to memorize them. I'll tell you. Is how do you feel? What did you learn? And what do you plan to do next? So I'll coach you through this, but that's how we're going to do it. All right, so if you're at a table of 3, one of you get up and walk to another table of 3 so that you are evened out. Pick a partner. Decide who's going to be Alice and who's going to be Bob.
Hey, Alice.
All right. Let's go ahead and bring it back. Now, what I love about buzz groups. This is what I love about buzz groups. What I love about buzz groups is that in a large audience where everyone participates, over the last hour or so, you've learned a lot, and everybody's head is, you're kind of swimming, you've got lots of ideas, and when you bring it back to a group and kind of get group input, if you don't have time to kind of process it a little bit, the comments that you get may not be exactly on point. I don't know if you've ever kind of led a discussion and you get that. Buzz groups allow everybody to kind of process what we've learned in a very short period of time. So that's why they're magical, and I just love it. That, and I love the conversation. So I'll just open it up for a couple of minutes. What did you learn? How do you feel? And what do you plan to do next? We'll just take a couple of comments. Yes, right up here. And I got him.
I feel better than I did when I first got here.
Awesome. I can go home happy now. All right, other comments? Yes.
I'm teaching disaster psychology to a teen CERT group, and I'm going to use this document rather than this one.
Awesome. Make sure you read it the right way, right? Okay, right over here. Yes.
I have learned so much about what the VOADs actually contribute to the community, and I wasn't aware. I am new to our organization's disaster team and just, had anxiety about, okay, how does this fit? How do I take back and, be able to implement this with our team? But I'm super excited. I've learned so many great things and realized that we do have some great resources already at our fingertips, but now I can expand on that and really develop, greater relationships. So
Awesome,
thank you.
and you're going to learn even more for the rest of the day.
Yay.
All right, one more comment. Where was it? Anybody?
Right, Frank.
Oh, yeah, sorry, right up front. Here we go.
How do you feel? What did you learn? What do you plan to do next?
I feel really relieved that there was Central Valley folk here in the room. I was afraid I'd be the only one. What did I learn? Well, we're a new VOAD team in Fresno County, so I mentioned to my Alice, because I chose to be Bob, he was Alice, that the first meeting was a little bit overwhelming. I walked away still not fully understanding what I was signing up for, so what I'm gonna do next is go back to our second meeting and feel a lot more prepared.
Over here? All right. Thank you all for having me, and I hope you learned a lot and had fun, and let's go eat lunch.